Hello, hello.
Hey, I'm hearing Kevin just fine.
Okay.
Yeah, could be something just with Discord.
All right, yeah, I think we're
In
starting to get audio now.
in the pipe, 5x5.
Awesome.
Yep, audio confirmed.
That was my bad. Sorry, I wasn't really paying attention to those
Hey, I'm
levels.
hearing Kevin just fine.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So other than that, real quick, does anyone have any questions or things or anything I covered so far?
Is there anything else that you would have done differently from how you prepared?
Yeah, and I'll kind of talk about that here. Actually, I'll just jump to it real quick. So things I would change if I were to test again, right? So foremost, not use well or Wiley's. All right. So much anger. Like I use that as like my prime study tool away from Pocket Prep. My last, I think, 2 months, and then I realized that like some of the questions, I think I should have got this right, and I would like reference, and then I think a couple times I actually did open up the study guide and try to see like why I'm getting this wrong or just understand the subject, and it wasn't clicking for me. And then I realized it was using the I think it was the 2016 or the 2018 guide as reference, and I was like, there's a lot of cuss words right there. I'll say that. And so I immediately just stopped all my statistics I used for that. I threw away in my head. Um, I probably would have started with try Hackney 6 months out to get like understanding on my weak points, which was a little bit more on the security engineering side, a little bit of the web app, DevSecOps, and while I was already familiar with some of those other tools from blue red team perspective, I probably would recommend like doing like a pen test class or offensive pen testing pathway if you're not familiar with some of those tools, and then or the cyber defense pathway, so you can understand when someone starts to talk about Waza or SeamSOAR, like all those different connections and like why it's different, other than just like the one or two buzzwords that you'll probably hear on the difference. But really understanding like what the purposes of those tools, I think, was extremely valuable when I took the test. I would have started with mind map probably 3 months out. So as I gained information, I wanted to start storing that properly in its location where I think it should go. The mind map series was fantastic through destination certification. It's all free on YouTube. That was fantastic. ChatGPT around the same time, like 3 months out. And when I get something wrong, or if I wanted to retain information in a different way, or run statistics further out, would have been much better. And I'll show you some of those statistics here in a second. 2 months out, I really should have done the CISSP study guide, or maybe even 6 months out. Really good for some of the subjects I was struggling with, because it gave a different perspective. Someone else other than Thor, or telling me something that maybe the way that Thor explained it didn't make sense to me. But Sarah Green definitely helped change the way that I was looking at that specific information. I don't have any like exact information on that. And then just use Exam Cram like 1 month out. Exam Cram series is about 8 hours long for every subject. And so taking about a month to get through a lot of that, and then taking practice exams constantly, like maybe weekly, doing an exam would definitely help. I think I was taking an exam like every other day, but like that's what I was just doing to get to my 3,000 questions. All right, so I'm going to kind of talk about how I use ChatGPT to help me enable studying. I'm going to drop this. I'm going to drop a link to you guys real quick so you guys can. This is my actual ChatGPT conversation I had with one of them. So there's no like, you're not going to be able to pull information out of the. Oh man, there we go. Nope, it's a picture. That could be. I don't know why it's to be a picture. I'll figure out that later. I'll drop that here. I'll drop the entire PowerPoint here in a minute. Do you guys still have me on streaming?
No, we lost the stream.
Oh, poop. Wrong button.
Too many buttons.
Yeah, too many buttons. All right, I'll drop that here in a bit. So
All right, got you back.
Do you guys actually see the stream like correctly?
No, it's in normal mode as opposed to presentation mode.
Oh man, these things are struggle bus. So
Just quick show of hands while Kevin works on that. Is anybody here working on their CISSP or trying to get it or considering getting it?
Yeah, I definitely have. Every 2 years, my position they pay for training and an exam. I've been there only for 6 months. So this is my first time going up. Currently, I've only got like Net Plus, Sec Plus. I'm a security analyst at a bank. So realistically, that's been on my radar. I know it's a lot to bite off, and typically you might want to do something beforehand. So one of my questions to the group is if anybody has taken both the CISSP and CEH, the Certified Ethical Hacker. I know they're not comparable, but just trying to see if the CEH kind of helped out with any of the CISSP test questions, or if it's worth it to have on your resume, that sort of thing.
I'm gonna just talk through I don't have CEH. I understand like the course material, so like I have a couple I have a book for it, so I kind of use that as a reference sometimes for CTFs or whatever I have. It will help you in the exam. I'm gonna say that, but not as much as you think it will be, as you think it might. I think if someone has Sec Plus, you just have to study a couple more different subjects, change the language to like what ISC squared wants, and I think you could probably test and pass CISSP. At that point, it just becomes how good are you at studying and retaining information.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right,
Hey, Kevin, quick question too. Does CISSP, do they require you to show proof of like experience, like so many years or whatnot?
Yes. So when you pass the exam, you get a provisionally pass. And what happens is they take a couple days and they say, yeah, you did pass the exam. But what you have to do is you have to go through an endorsement process. In the endorsement process, usually you get to find someone that's ISC squared endorsed already, and then they can endorse you. And what you're required to do is upload some sort of proof of work. Usually it could be on official letterhead, signed by a boss, or they can call somebody and validate that you have at least 5 years of work experience in the role, or you have a degree or a certification. They will waive that 1 year total, so you can't have like a certification and a degree, but they'll waive 1 year off that requirement, so you can receive a fully endorsed CISSP at 4 years.
So does that have to be the 4 to 5 years in a specific like InfoSec role, or is it just IT in general?
It has to be in one of the 8 domains. And so as long as you have experience in one of the 8 domains, which one of them could be any IT role can swing. I'm responsible for hardening IT systems or basic baseline security, or like IAM, for example. If you're just at network admin, you might deal with Active Directory. So now you deal with IAM, identity management at least. So arguably, you have at least one domain experience.
Cool. Thank you. I know that information's online, so I'll do my research if I have any more questions.
Yeah. And again, feel free to reach out.
Looks like they're mostly security related. It's security risk management, asset security, security architecture engineering, communication network security, IAM, security assessment and testing, security operations, and software development security.
Yep. So it's all, I'll say it's security focused, but I think most people in IT can probably say they do something like if you're just doing switches, from a network admin perspective, like you do have a secure baseline. So you do, I think that's, I'm not going to tell you to fib on it or anything, but I think at some point you do deal with some sort of architecture at that point. Yeah. So real quick, I kind of took some snippets of my very long ChatGPT conversation, and so kind of just real quick go through a couple of them on how I use ChatGPT to enable some studying. Could be used for anything that you're using for it, not just CISSP. But again, my initial prompt was you're studying. You're going to help me study for CISSP. And so what I did was, hey, I need you to prioritize my weakest area, and this is one of my later prompts, in searchable terms for YouTube, and make an exhaustive list. So basically, at this point, ChatGPT has information about subjects I suck at, and I want them to provide me in each of these fields something that I need to do better on, right? So I was failing a question, for example, on one for business continuity planning. Just whatever question it was, maybe I messed up the formula, and it said, hey, search business continuity planning. One of the really weird questions that I kept getting wrong because I couldn't wrap my head around it for some reason until some random YouTube video helped me understand the difference between due care and due diligence. I think as a community, most people will just say those words interchangeably because it's pretty close to the same thing. But for CISSP, the way that ISC squared views it is due diligence is something you do before something happens, and then due care is an action you do during an incident. So while you did your due diligence to make a incident response plan, due care is when you actually exercise that plan, following the plan, or if you found something, reporting it, even though it might be your buddy. So that's kind of like some examples of due care. And so that's some examples where ISC squared wants you to use specific language. And I couldn't wrap my head around it for some reason. It took me a while to understand that. And if it's kind of confusing to you now, I was exactly right there with you. Some random YouTube video, some guy using that search term explained it to me differently, and it made sense to me. And again, I messed up some data remnants. Some of the words were pretty similar. And so those are just some searchable terms that kind of help me focus on a specific area, because I didn't want to just search asset security. I wanted to be like, based on this question, what should I search, right? So on that left screen there, you'll see I had studyquestions.docx. What one of the, I think it was Pearson's, what I did is when I finished taking my test on Pearson's, they would give you the actual document that you can hit print, PDF. And what I would do is make that my study questions. The ones that you failed, it says, it gives all the questions, the answers, which ones you answered, and then like a reason on why B was the correct answer instead of C. And so I uploaded that document to ChatGPT, and I gave it some additional prompts right there. CISSP CAT examination weights. So these are the 8 domains in CISSP and the weights in which it matters for your overall score. The way that they do it is kind of proprietary. No one really knows how exactly it works, but you need to score at least 700 points out of 1,000. I'm not going to go down the theory on, you don't need a 70% to pass. It's each question has a different weight. It gets super crazy, so I'm not going to go down that hole. But overall, I was like, hey, here's the exam rates. And then I was like, the attached documents is the answers to the questions I got wrong or I flagged. So during the test, you can flag a question I was like, I'm kind of unsure about. I would flag it so I could reference it later. And I use that in ChatGPT. Provide me analysis on what domains I'm weakest at, then provide me the top 3 domains I should focus my studies on, taking the exam weights into consideration. Further, provide me additional statistics that will be useful for studying for CISSP based on me taking the 110 question practice test. And based on that, kind of shot out the information on the right-hand side. It was much longer, but that's the piece of information I cared about, which is across each of those domains, like how many questions did I get wrong or I flagged as I'm not exactly sure about that subject. And then what it did was, on that last part of the prompt, is it gave me the top 3 domains to be focusing on, considering distribution and weight, and exam weight as a consideration. It said, hey, study more architecture engineering, security operations, and security and risk management. And so right there kind of helped me out. If you look the difference between like 1 and 3, for example, 15% of the errors, and that counted for 13% of my exam weight. But 3 I only had 12.5% errors, and that had 15% exam weight, right? So now when I was going to do, what I would do is take this information and say, I'm going to go watch the exam cram study series for security architecture engineering, security operations, security risk management. Says my strategy on this was I'm just going to study my top 3 weakest areas, and then retest again later. And if those change, I'll just study the weakest area again. And so I'm constantly just studying my weakest areas to improve the overall score. And so the big reason I was doing that study method is it's not 70% overall. You have to pass by domain. So I could pass 7 of the 8 domains, but if I failed one of the the eighth domain, I wouldn't pass the overall exam. So my strategy was just to focus on my weakest domains, make sure I pass each domain successfully, not outweighing one domain being an A plus versus like a D on a different domain. If that kind of makes sense. And then again, here's another one I did real quick. This is the last one I'll show. Give me a detailed list of specific topics I need to learn within each domain based on the exam that I took. So basically what this is allowing me to do is by all the domains telling me the things I need to restudy across all the domains to kind of help me baseline a little bit. So as I hear about these, as I'm driving to work, watching a video or listening to the video, when they start talking about trusted computing base, I can be like, okay, let me narrow in on what this is. And I can kind of focus and try to focus on that little piece there. And if I had more confusion, I'll probably Google something, try to look at some diagrams or just some forms for people explaining to me like what that study looked like. Does anyone have any questions with like using ChatGPT to kind of help enable some of that studying from a statistical based or as my analytical brain?
I do.
What's up, T-Man?
Yes. Are there any specific prompts that you would put in to optimize the most streamlined and effective setting for CISSP?
Yeah. So think about it as if you took a Sec Plus practice exam and you got the results. It showed you all the pages. What I would do is like hit Control P or just print that page into PDF, and I would upload it to here. If you look on the left hand side, you'll see it says me. I uploaded the study questions, and then I gave it this crazy long prompt, which is just a paragraph and a half, if you will, that says the attached document explaining what the document is. And then what I wanted to do, provide me an analysis on what domains I'm weakest at, then provide me top 3 domains that I should focus my studies on, taking the exam weights into consideration. So I have Sec Plus, so a good strategy for that would be do a practice test, somehow save that to a document of some kind, and put that into ChatGPT and give it a similar prompt of what you actually need it to do. And again, the initial prompt was literally 3 words. You're a CISSP study partner. So 4 words. Sorry, numbers are hard. I can't read. So those are some of the things that I would do to kind of help do the analytical piece. And again, T-Man, if you started to chat on ChatGPT and you want some advice on that, I'd be more than happy to reach out to you, talk you through that. All right, kind of already talked about things that would change if I were to test again. But the one big thing that I'm going to kind of cover here is would I take the CISSP again? So ultimately, 1000% yes, right? My ability to gain to the interview stage went up significantly from Boeing, Microsoft, multiple defense contracting roles. I think that's mostly because I have a clearance, but that's a different subject. So to kind of give someone a preview, I'm transitioning out of my current role and I'm joining the private business sector. Very excited for that. So I started applying for jobs pre-CISSP, and I got, I think, 1 callback total. Post-CISSP, and I'm putting that on my resume, tons more callbacks. So I think overall, whether we like it or not, I think having CISSP on my resume was definitely a game changer. I did interviews for Microsoft last week. I have some for Boeing next week. And some defense contractors are reaching out to me as well. They're recruiters. I'm not going through interviews at the time for them, but recruiters are reaching out to me a little bit more than I've seen in the past. So I think definitely if you're trying to get into an interview stage, CISSP would definitely help you. If you're working for a defense contractor, CISSP is one of the certifications they look for from a compliance perspective, just for like a basic understanding of that. If you're working for a DoD entity or a contractor that works for a DoD entity, they have information assurance technicians and information assurance manager levels 1 through 3. And CISSP covers you for being a technician and a manager at the highest level possible with that one certification. So you'll see a lot of DoD focused folks or defense contracting companies. In order to hold a certain IT role, you're required to be an IAT level 3 or IAM level 3, and CISSP covers you for both of them. So it's a really easy one-off to get people to say, hey, I have the minimum requirements to meet compliance standards for the DoD to serve in a specific role. So, and having a clearance also helps for the DoD type folks. But overall, without beating a dead horse too much, yes, 1000% would take it again. If I failed, I would have taken it again. I did luckily pass at 125. And I remember if you get, so really how the test works is it's a adaptive test. So a computer adaptive test. So what it means is it will stop you at 125, whether you have a high success, whether it knows for a fact that you will pass or if you will fail. And if you're at 125 to 175 questions, it'll stop you if you hit if you're going to pass or fail. If you already hit the number that's going to pass, it'll stop you at question 125 or 140 up to 175 and say, yeah, you passed. Or if you stop, or it'll stop you at 125 if you got too many questions wrong already, or 175 if they're not going to let you pass at that point. So it's kind of a mind game, I would say, a little bit on that piece, as well as components of that is 25 questions out of the 125 to 175 are ungraded pre-test questions that you don't know what those ones are. So it was like I can tell you that there's really some off the wall questions that they're using as statistics to add to their test bank to see if it's like how hard is the question, type of question answers. So they're using it as like a test question that's not graded, so it doesn't count towards your overall test score. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Yeah, quick question before moving to the next slide. For clearance specifically, what would be the easiest way to get clearance? To my understanding, it's basically just finding an employer that would be willing to sponsor you through, hiring.
Yeah, no, that's a way. Most people who get clearances just join the military, right? If you get the right role, they'll give you a certain level of security clearance aligned to that role. If you go to an employer and you are applying for a certain role, they'll say you'll be required to have a security clearance. If you agree, you'll do the extensive background check based on the security level you need, if it's secret or top secret or whatever the case is. Some employers will upgrade you from secret to TS or top secret. I think someone told me one time, and it's just ingrained in my head, that it costs an employer about $120,000 to get someone a top secret clearance. And that's just going through the process. It's not guaranteed you'll get it. You might be declined for whatever reason it might be. A lot of factors go into being to that. Like if you have too much debt, for example, they'll decline your clearance. But certain kinds of debt, like student loans, doesn't count. There's all sorts of different reasons for it. I'm not the subject matter expert on it, so please take that with a grain of salt. But you can talk to your employer, and there's some online resources there that can help you.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. Yeah. Anyone else? Sweet. That was kind of my end of my slide there. So what I will do is I'll go ahead and post some of those things and my entire prompts I was using into the chat here. So if you guys have any questions, feel free.